On December 23, 1924, in Geneva, the biggest light bulb makers on Earth signed an agreement to make their bulbs worse. Not cheaper. Worse. They cut the standard life of a bulb from around 2,500 hours down to exactly 1,000, and they wrote it into a contract. Osram, Philips, Compagnie des Lampes, Associated Electrical Industries, General Electric. The company they founded was called Phoebus. And here's the part that should bother you. They didn't trust each other to keep the bulbs bad, so they built a laboratory to check. That laboratory is the reason your washing machine dies in year 3. They enforced it with fines. Every member company had to ship sample bulbs to a central testing facility in Switzerland. The lab burned them. It logged how long each one lasted. And if your bulbs ran past the agreed limit, you paid. Historians who've gone through the cartel's paperwork put the penalty at half a Swiss franc for every 100 hours over the line, assessed against your production. Sit with the direction of that. Not a fine for a bulb that failed early, a fine for a bulb that lasted. Every engineer inside those companies now had a number over their head that pointed the wrong way. Make it better, and it costs the company money. Make it die on schedule, and you're compliant. The incentive that normally protects you, a competitor who will beat them on quality, was the exact thing they'd just signed away. This is the whole mechanism of this episode, and it is not a metaphor. Product life is not weather. It's not luck. It is a design parameter, and somebody picks the value. Here's what makes Phoebus genuinely clever, rather than just greedy. The cover story was true. The cartel didn't only cap life, it also enforced brightness. Samples were tested for lumens per watt, and a manufacturer selling a dim, inefficient bulb got penalized too. On paper, this was standardization, a consumer protection story told with a straight face. Before Phoebus, a bulb was a lottery, and the industry could say honestly that it had ended the lottery. And there is real physics underneath. In a tungsten filament, life and efficiency pull against each other. Run the filament hotter, and you get whiter, brighter light per watt, and the tungsten boils away faster. Run it cooler, and it lasts far longer while producing a dim orange glow that wastes most of your electricity as heat. There is a genuine engineering trade-off, and 1,000 hours is a defensible place to land on it. That's the trick. The cartel picked the point on that curve that was best for the cartel, then presented it as the point that was best for you. Every version of this you'll meet today does the same thing. The sealed battery is waterproofing, the glued phone is thinner, the unrepairable appliance is safety. There's usually a real reason in there. It just isn't the whole reason, and it's never the one doing the deciding. The arithmetic is embarrassingly simple. A bulb that lasts 2,500 hours and a bulb that lasts 1,000 hours light the same room. But over a decade, the household buys 2.5 times as many of the second one. If you're a cartel that has already divided the world into territories and fixed the prices, which Phoebus had, you can't grow by taking each other's customers. There's only one lever left. Sell the same people the same thing, more often. That's the entire business model, and it doesn't need a villain to work. It doesn't require a single meeting where someone says, let's cheat them. It requires one thing, a market where the buyer cannot tell the difference at the moment of purchase. You cannot look at a light bulb and see 1,000 hours. You can't see 2,500 either. The information arrives 2 years later, spread across a shelf of receipts you've already thrown away, and by then the purchase decision is long gone. Anywhere the buyer can't verify durability at the counter, durability is the first thing that gets cut. Not because manufacturers are evil, because it's the only quality nobody's paying for. Did it actually work? That's the part people skip, and it's the part that matters. Researchers who dug through the cartel's own internal records found the numbers moved exactly as designed. The average life of the bulbs these companies sold fell steadily across the late 1920s and early 1930s, landing near the 1,000-hour target, down from noticeably higher before the agreement. The lab worked. The fines worked. Engineers, given a target, hit it. That's what engineers do. Prices, meanwhile, did not fall the way you'd expect from a technology improving that fast. The agreement was written to run until 1955. It didn't get there. The Second World War cut the members' supply lines and their ability to police each other, and Phoebus stopped functioning around 1939 and was wound up in the years after. It ended because of a war, not because anyone caught it. But 1,000 hours outlived the cartel that invented it. It stayed the industry norm for decades, long after the contract was ash, because once every factory, every fixture, every consumer expectation is calibrated around a number, the number stops needing enforcement. It's just how long a bulb lasts. That's the most durable thing Phoebus ever built. If you're finding this useful, subscribing genuinely helps. It's how this channel keeps making these instead of chasing whatever's trending. Because the obvious question is the uncomfortable one. Phoebus was a cartel. Signed, registered, illegal-looking, gone by 1940. So why does the thing it invented describe your kitchen better today than it did in 1935? With no cartel, no lab in Switzerland, and no contract at all. The answer is that you don't need the meeting anymore. Phoebus needed a Swiss laboratory because it was coordinating 14 rival companies who all wanted to defect. Every modern manufacturer has that laboratory in-house, and it's not a conspiracy. It's a standard department. Reliability engineering, accelerated life testing. You build the product, you stress it, you measure the failure curve, and you tune the components until the curve sits where the business wants it. That department exists for good reasons. It's how you find out a hinge fails at 8,000 cycles before you ship 1 million of them. But it produces a number. And the moment a company knows precisely how long its product will last, how long should it last becomes a decision on a spreadsheet, weighed against cost, warranty exposure, and replacement revenue. Nobody has to say the quiet part. The cheaper capacitor is cheaper. The specified lifetime clears the warranty period. The paperwork is spotless. Phoebus was a group of companies agreeing to hit 1,000 hours. Today, it's each company, alone, deciding what its own 1,000 hours is. Same mechanism. No cartel required. And no one to fine. Look at how it shows up in the objects around you. The battery. Almost every rechargeable cell degrades on a schedule. A few hundred to around 1,000 full charge cycles before it's noticeably weaker. That's chemistry, and it's honest. What's a choice is whether that cell is a part you can swap for a few dollars, or whether it's glued into a sealed shell that turns a worn battery into a dead product. Electric toothbrushes, wireless earbuds, shavers, vacuums, speakers. The failing component costs very little. The design decides whether that matters. The spare part that costs more than the machine. A control board for a mid-range washing machine can be quoted at a sizable fraction of a new unit, and once the part plus the labor crosses roughly half the replacement price, essentially everyone replaces. That threshold isn't discovered. It's a pricing decision, and where you set it determines the machine's real lifespan. Then there's parts pairing, where a component is matched to the device and software, so an identical replacement part gets rejected, degraded, or nagged at unless the swap is authorized. It's the Swiss lab logic, rebuilt in firmware, a test that decides whether your repair counts. And LEDs. An LED chip can be rated for tens of thousands of hours. Plenty of cheap bulbs die far sooner because the small electronics driving the chip, the capacitors, run hot in a sealed plastic body and fail long before the light does. The bulb that replaced the Phoebus bulb has its own 1,000 hours. It's just in a different component. This is where the picture outside the United States gets genuinely different and more hopeful. In much of Latin America, in India, across a lot of Africa and Southeast Asia, repair never went away. There are dense repair markets in most large cities, streets and multi-story buildings where a technician will open a phone, reflow a board, source a used part from a stripped unit and hand it back working the same afternoon for a fraction of a replacement. That skill base is enormous, and it's economically rational. When a new appliance costs a serious share of a monthly income, fixing it is obviously correct. So the collision is sharp. You have a repair economy that works, meeting products engineered on the assumption that nobody will repair them. Glued shells, undocumented boards, unavailable parts, software that rejects a part it didn't authorize. Which reframes the whole thing. Designed lifespan is not a rich country annoyance about upgrading your phone. Where repair is normal, it's a transfer. Value that used to stay in a local workshop gets moved into a new sale by design. The independent technician isn't collateral damage in that model. The technician is the competitor being fined, which brings us to what you can actually do. And it starts with the one thing Phoebus proves. The manufacturer knows. They ran the test. There is a number, and it exists in a document somewhere in that company. The entire asymmetry of this market is that the number is on their side of the counter and not yours. So every useful move is the same move. Force the durability question to happen before you pay, not 2 years after. Start with repairability scores, where they exist. France has required a repairability index on several categories since 2021. Smartphones, laptops, televisions, washing machines, and more. A score out of 10 built from things like documentation, ease of disassembly, and spare part availability and price. It's imperfect, and it's been criticized for being partly self-reported. It's also the only number on the box that's about the years after the purchase. 2 machines, same price, scores of 4 and 8. That gap is the part you were never supposed to see. Second, treat the warranty as data, not as a service. A warranty is a manufacturer's own estimate of its failure curve, converted into money. They priced it. If a company offers 2 years on one model and 10 on another, they are telling you in a legally binding document which one they expect to survive. That's the reliability lab talking, out loud, in public. Know your baseline so you can spot the signal. Across the European Union, consumers have a legal guarantee of at least 2 years on new goods, and several countries go further. So a 2-year warranty sticker in Europe is frequently not a feature at all. It's the floor, dressed up as generosity. Anything genuinely long is a real claim, and it costs them real money to make. The same logic reads the extended warranty upsell backwards. When a retailer pushes hard to sell you 3 extra years of coverage, that department has run the numbers on how often this thing breaks and concluded the price is comfortably profitable. It's not proof the product is bad. It is a hint from someone with better data than you. Third, and this is the habit that changes the most. Stop comparing prices. Compare cost per year. Take the purchase price, add the parts and repairs you realistically expect, divide by the years you expect to get. A $400 washing machine that dies in 4 years costs $100 a year. A $700 machine that runs 12 costs about $58 a year. It's cheaper, and it also costs you 11 fewer days of shopping, delivery, and installation. 2 honest caveats. Sometimes you don't have $700, and cost per year is a luxury calculation that assumes capital you don't have. That's real, and it's one of the ways this system charges poor households more for the same appliance. And expected life is a guess, which is exactly why the repairability score and the warranty length matter, because they're the only inputs to that guess you can get before paying. But run the arithmetic even roughly, and the ranking of the options on the shelf changes surprisingly often. Sticker price answers what leaves my account today. Cost per year answers the question you actually had. And fourth, the structural one, because none of this should be your job. The rules are moving. The EU adopted a right to repair directive in 2024, pushing member states toward obligations on manufacturers to repair certain products and to make repair a more available option after warranty. EU eco-design rules that began applying to smartphones and tablets in June 2025 require spare parts availability for years after a model stops being sold, plus battery endurance standards. The EU battery regulation is set to require that portable batteries in appliances be designed so users can remove and replace them, phasing in from 2027. India's Consumer Affairs Ministry launched a Right to Repair portal in 2022 to push manufacturers to publish manuals and parts information. None of that is finished, and enforcement is where these things usually go to die. But notice what it targets. Not the price, not the emissions, not the marketing. The design decision. The 1,000 hours. Phoebus needed a laboratory in Switzerland to keep bulbs from lasting too long. Nobody's ever going to write you a fine for buying the one that lasts, which is the same trick your savings account runs. Not designed to break, designed to underperform. To pay you less than inflation takes quietly for years while looking like a service. We already priced that one. It's on screen. Go take it apart.